Well, well, it finally happened. After years of royal drama, family feuds, and Netflix tell-alls, King Charles has done the unthinkable. He stripped Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of every last royal title.
The gruesome twosome, Harry and Meghan, they're increasing ostracisation by the royals. They're ostracised, aren't they? They're now no longer being called HRH.
Well, at long last, Prince Harry has finally had his HRH title stripped from the royal family website. Buckingham Palace has ditched his title online 3 years after it was agreed that he would lose it following the Megxit deal.
Like, that's what you need to do. Meghan, I'm telling you, this woman needs to be put in her place. And the fact that you now have this whole issue with Andrew.
No more HRH, no more Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Just Harry and Meghan, ordinary civilians. Done. It's the kind of royal move people said Charles was too soft to ever make. But this time, the king didn't blink. Buckingham Palace quietly updated the official royal website, removing every trace of his and her royal highness. No press conference, no warning, just a quiet digital guillotine. Inside the palace, whispers say this wasn't just a correction. It was a message. The monarchy was reminding the world who's in charge. For 3 years, the Sussexes danced between two worlds, half royal, half celebrity, but the crown just made it official. You can't serve California and the crown at the same time. And let's be real, the timing wasn't random. The family had been patient, maybe too patient. But behind those palace walls, pressure was building. And soon, the real reason for this royal strike would come to light. So what finally pushed Charles to cut the cord? Allegedly, the spark came when Meghan used her Duchess title in new business filings, even after promising the late Queen Elizabeth she'd never mix royalty with money. And that was all it took. To the palace, it looked like a betrayal. To William, it was humiliation. One insider claimed he was furious, saying Meghan had turned the crown into a brand. But this wasn't just about feelings. It was about power. Because word from Westminster was that Parliament had started whispering about a royal titles reform bill, a law that could strip non-working royals of their privileges altogether. That meant Charles wasn't just deciding as a father, he was deciding as a king. If he didn't act first, Parliament would. And the last thing he wanted was politicians debating royal shame on the evening news. So he acted swiftly, quietly, and absolutely. Some say the king didn't swing the sword out of anger. He did it out of survival. The monarchy couldn't afford another scandal, not with Andrew still lurking in the background and the world already questioning their relevance. For Charles, this was chess, not checkers. And guess who was moving the pieces behind him? That's right, Prince William. Because while Charles might have signed the papers, make no mistake, this was William's move. For months, the future king had been quietly pushing his father to take control. He was tired of watching the monarchy become a soap opera. Every podcast jab, every Netflix confession, every headline had chipped away at royal credibility. William reportedly told his father during one heated conversation, "You can't be king and be afraid of upsetting people who already left the family." And that was it. The heir had spoken. Those close to the palace say William saw Harry and Meghan as a liability, not a loss. To him, protecting the crown meant cutting off anyone who used royal prestige while mocking the institution that gave it to them. He wasn't cruel. He was cold. Strategic. This was William's first public flex of authority, and behind closed doors, it sent shockwaves through royal staff. The message was crystal clear. The era of royal exceptions is over. And as the dust settled, Buckingham Palace finally started to look disciplined again. The king had drawn the line. The heir had sharpened it. And in Montecito, the Sussexes were about to find out what happens when the crown bites back. Behind the palace gates, King Charles wasn't celebrating his victory. He was torn apart by it. For weeks before the decision, he'd wrestled with it privately. As a father, he still saw his youngest son, the little boy who once followed him through the gardens at Highgrove, not the man now living under California sunshine. But as a king, he saw a ticking threat to the monarchy's image. Those close to the palace say Charles's health and stress levels were worsening. He dreaded being remembered as the king who let love cloud duty. One insider recalled the moment the paperwork landed on his desk. The silence was heavy, the air cold. Charles hesitated, then finally said, "He's my son, but I'm the king." And with one signature, he made the hardest decision of his reign. But it wasn't just about punishment, it was about restoring balance. For years, the monarchy had been seen as weak, reactive, constantly cleaning up after the Sussex PR storms. This was Charles's way of reasserting control, of reminding everyone that the crown is not sentimental. Still, those closest to him say he hasn't been the same since, because this wasn't just politics, it was personal. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic in sunny Montecito, Meghan Markle was reportedly livid. Sources claim that when she first heard the news, she thought it was a mistake, until the official royal website confirmed it. The titles were gone. The Duchess was no more. She allegedly called the palace decision a targeted attack, hinting that it had racial undertones, warning that it would backfire globally. But the backlash she expected never came. Not from the US media, not from her celebrity friends, not from anyone. Even Hollywood, once her biggest fan base, went quiet. Suddenly, Meghan's entire brand, from her lifestyle ventures to her media projects, looked unstable. Every proposal, every contract, every marketing pitch had leaned on her Duchess identity. Without it, the deals lost sparkle. A Hollywood insider put it bluntly, her title was her brand. Without it, the shine fades fast. And she knew it. Behind closed doors, her team scrambled phone calls, lawyers, publicists, all trying to figure out how to rebrand Meghan Markle without the crown. But the real sting wasn't professional. It was personal. Meghan had promised Queen Elizabeth she'd never use her royal status for profit. And now that promise had come full circle, like karma wrapped in royal gold foil. Inside that Montecito mansion, walls that once echoed with ambition now carried tension. And while Meghan was fuming, Harry was breaking. If Meghan's reaction was fury, Harry's was heartbreak. Sources say he took the news harder than anyone expected. For him, those titles weren't about money or fame. They were about identity. They were the last thread connecting him to the only world he'd ever known. The moment he learned of his father's decision, Harry reportedly made a private call to Charles. He wasn't angry, he was pleading. He reminded his father of their family bond, of his mother's memory, of the promise that Diana's boys would always be protected. But Charles didn't bend. A palace insider claimed the king listened quietly before saying, "You've made your choices, Harry. Now I must make mine." The call ended there. No shouting, no reconciliation, just silence. From that point on, Harry withdrew. Friends say he's been more distant, more subdued. He goes through the motions of life in California, but his mind and heart remain in Windsor. Losing his royal identity wasn't just a career blow, it was a spiritual exile. And for the first time, even Meghan reportedly noticed the difference. The man who once fought to build a new life away from the crown suddenly seemed lost without it. He wasn't Prince Harry anymore, just Harry. And somehow, that title felt heavier than all the ones he'd lost. While Montecito simmered with tension, the real storm was forming across the pond in Westminster. By the time King Charles signed those papers, Parliament had already started whispering about intervention. Behind closed doors, officials were drafting what sources call the Royal Titles Reform Bill, a plan to strip away privileges from any royal who no longer served the crown. And they weren't just talking about Harry and Meghan. The early drafts reportedly included Prince Andrew, Beatrice, and Eugenie, basically anyone who had turned royal status into a side hustle. To them, the monarchy wasn't just a family, it was a public institution. And if the world was laughing, it was Parliament's problem too. So when Charles finally acted, it wasn't just a royal decision, it was a political move. He knew if he didn't draw the line, the government would, and that would have been far more humiliating. This wasn't just about two people in California anymore. This was about the crown itself fighting for survival. Once the ink was dry, the fallout spread like wildfire. By stripping Harry and Meghan's titles, Charles didn't just clean up one mess, he wiped the slate clean for the entire monarchy. It also silenced critics who accused him of double standards after the lenient handling of Prince Andrew. Now there were no exceptions, not for the disgraced Duke of York, not for the California royals, not for anyone. The message was simple: royal privilege is not a lifetime membership, it's a responsibility. But the collateral damage? Archie and Lilibet. With their parents' titles gone, so was any chance of royal rank in the future. Meghan allegedly told friends that Charles had robbed her children of their legacy. But inside the palace, the view was different. That legacy isn't inherited, it's earned. Archie and Lilibet would grow up as Americans, not Windsors. And perhaps that was exactly how the palace wanted it. Quiet, distant, and far from royal chaos. To the monarchy, this wasn't cruelty, it was cleanup. And so just like that, the story comes full circle. The royal website updated, the paperwork sealed, the names Duke and Duchess of Sussex erased like they were never there. For King Charles, it wasn't revenge, it was restoration. For William, it was validation. The crown finally acting like a crown again, and for Harry and Meghan, it was consequence. The final reminder that you can walk away from the palace, but you can't take the kingdom with you. The monarchy stood taller, colder, and clearer than before. Titles stripped, privilege reset, order restored. Even in the chaos, there's something poetic about it. The father who once avoided confrontation finally stood firm. The son who once rebelled finally faced the cost. And the daughter-in-law who built an empire on status learned what happens when the crown stops playing along. And as the royal watchers say, the crown never forgets. What began as a love story, whispers one insider, ended as a royal warning. A warning that no matter how far you run, no matter how bright your fame burns, the monarchy moves on, and the spotlight that once adored you can turn ice cold in an instant. The era of the Sussexes is over. The crown has spoken.